Right, so today we're looking into the Resident Evil Requiem. 10 huge new details that prove Requiem isn't just another Resident Evil game. So this is from what's called Gaming Bolt, a YouTube channel. To give them a like, share, subscribe, to go support them. But yeah, we're going to dive into this. We dive into all the juicy details about the Resident Evil from Requiem, from the demo of from Gamescom 2025. So yeah, I'm looking forward to us checking this out and seeing what we can. Let's see what's what. Let's go. Let's dive in.
Gamescom 2025 has brought some very welcome news about Resident Evil Requiem. With a story and gameplay showcase now made public knowledge, there's a lot more to unpack about the new game than meets the eye. From likely occurrences in the game's story to gameplay tweaks that could up the ante for Grace Ashcroft as she encounters more horrors than she bargained for when she joined the FBI, here are some new details that we were able to glean from the recent gameplay showcase and the nostalgic look it gave us into Grace and Alyssa's time as mother and daughter.
I'm being funny, but my thoughts like this, just even with this scene here, it just, it does look like Silent Hill rather than Resident Evil, but
we're able to glean from the recent gameplay showcase and the nostalgic look it gave us into Grace and Alyssa's time as mother and daughter. Let's dive in. Number 1, the new lighting system is more than just cosmetic. Grace's terrifying time in the game's demo brought something very interesting to light. We already knew that Requiem was going to be quite photorealistic, presenting the genre's trademark terrors with cinematic flair and a frightening level of authenticity. Its lighting systems were terrific additions, adding to the oppressive atmosphere the developers wanted to convey. But the new demo showcases that they could be important parts of the...
But it also looks a bit, like you can see the Resident Evil 7 vibe. I know this is made by the same directors and producers of Resident Evil 7, but I think which is a great choice, because Resident Evil 7, I think although Resident Evil 7 had its flaws, well, mainly first person perspective, but in the enemy types were just exactly the same. But anyway, that aside, but the feel from what I'm seeing here, and I can really see the Resident Evil 7 sort of vibe. Do you know what I mean?
The gameplay loop as well. Grace is shown turning on an overhead white lamp in a specific room as she is relentlessly pursued by the game's new stalker enemy. Surprisingly enough, the monster is seared by the light, immediately retreating from the room and giving Grace a brief respite from the chase. It's quite likely then that other enemies in the game could face similar negative effects, making the strategic use of lights in certain environments quite crucial.
So is this enemy type is a bit sort of, it sounds like almost like a vampire kind of thing, because it's got, obviously this, like as I just described there, that the enemy type, that this stalker, whatever it is, whatever it's called, I'm sure the Capcom and developers have come up with some crazy name for it. But anyway, it's that. So it doesn't like light, so it just wants to just stick to the shadows and the dark rooms. So I think turning on lights and to keep it at bay, I think that's going to be a thing. So
to survive like the ordeal that's in store for all of us. It would be quite a smart way to utilize current gen power to amp up the experience on offer, and the RE engine seems quite up to the task at this point. Number 2, eerie enemies. Requiem seems to be striking a balance between the original Resident Evil games and their modern counterparts, blending action and slower sequences with aplomb. Of course,
does that mean it's going back to sort of like zombies again? Because actually, I would love that. I don't want all these like werewolves and grenados and whatever. I don't want any of that. I just want like back to the zombies. That's what I want.
That blend needs the right kind of adversaries to bring it all together, and this upcoming title seems to have that conveyed. The Stalker is terrifying, no two ways about it at all. Grotesque, imposing, and seemingly devoid of a shred of mercy. Its pursuit of Grace has been the highlight of several analyses of how the game delivers its scares. However, we just can't seem to shake the image of that monster from the story showcase, the dried up blood around its eyes and mouth as haunting as the way in which it killed the poor hotel manager, with no qualms and an almost bloodthirsty demeanor about it. If these two enemies are any indication, this is a game that makes us hesitate to take it on, no matter how eager we are to play it.
What if you can create your own website by saying, "This is what I want"? With Wix, you can.
Number 3, ink ribbons don't save. It seems that the game is continuing with more traditional methods of saving
Ink ribbons don't save. What do they do then?
your progress, with a tongue-in-cheek reference to ink ribbons included in this demo. Grace finds one hidden away, only for the item description to state that it's completely useless. Now, for those of you who are unaware, ink ribbons used to be an item available in limited quantities throughout the older Resident Evil games, adding a sort of layer of strategy to each playthrough as you needed to be careful about when using them to save. Perhaps there's more to that reference, and the studio is attempting some serious misdirection? Well, we'll have to wait to find out. Number 4, parallel perspectives. While a lot has already been said on the relative merits of a first-person versus a third-person perspective in the game, we would weigh in by saying that both angles are equally terrifying, and perfectly viable ways of enjoying the game. It's really going to boil down to your preferences and how you choose to enjoy the experience overall. Our recommendation would be switching between the two, which seems to be quite seamless just as the game intended it to be. They are both equally terrifying, which is what really matters in a game like Requiem. Number 5, the more things change, the more that they stay the same. Although Requiem is bringing a lot of groundbreaking additions to the genre, it's still a Resident Evil title at its heart.
So hold on. So what's it about? The different perspectives, because I've heard that if you are really playing in first-person mode, then the enemies are a bit more ferocious. But if you switch to third-person, then they're not as ferocious. And I suppose I don't know the ins and outs whether that's any truth to that. That was just something from another YouTube video that I see. Saying something like that, so I'm not quite 100% sure on that one, so I don't know. But
Person perspective in the game, we would weigh in by saying that both angles are equally terrifying and perfectly viable ways of enjoying the game. It's really going to boil down to your preferences and how you choose to enjoy the experience overall. Our recommendation would be switching between the two, which seems to be quite seamless just as the game intended it to be. They are both equally terrifying, which is what really matters in a game like Requiem. Number 5, the more things change.
Sorry, hang on.
Terrifying, which seems to be quite seamless just as the game intended it to be. They are both equally terrifying, which is what really matters.
So I just want to see. Those who prefer an immersive gaming experience can play in first-person view, while those who want to see the character's actions clearly can play in third-person view. Okay, yeah, well, we already knew that.
In a game like Requiem. Number 5, the more things change, the more that they stay the same. Although Requiem is bringing a lot of groundbreaking additions to the genre, it's still a Resident Evil title at its heart. You're still going to be making your way through locations, chasing down useful items and supplies, like healing herbs, while avoiding confrontations with the game's very terrifying enemies. It's nice then that there's a modicum of familiarity to offer us some sort of comfort, at least, in a game where safety and security are very, very valuable commodities. Number 6, a bond of blood. Now, it's time to turn our attention to the story showcase, and the flashback to Grace and Alyssa's time at the hotel. It's a great place to start. Grace is clearly unhappy with Alyssa's absence for an unspecified extended duration, but their relationship seems quite strong despite all that. However, the fact that they are staying at a hotel, coupled with Alyssa's response to the mysterious phone call that she receives, suggests that the two may have been on the run from someone or something. That's further solidified by the fact that Alyssa immediately reaches into her purse for a handgun, exhorting Grace to join her flight. That plan clearly goes awry, with the pair being attacked by the enemy we mentioned before, and Alyssa's apparent off-screen death. We're still not convinced that she's really dead though, a theory that we're going to dive into in just a minute. Number 7, Alyssa's pistol. Now, before we dive into Alyssa's presumed death from the trailer, let's talk about the gun she draws from her.
Hang on, because, yeah, just speaking about that, the pistol looks like the same pistol that we see, what's that, Grace, using in, in the previous, like, the first demo. Not first demo, the first trailer, I meant to say. Which looks like a Makarov kind of style pistol, like some like Russian style pistol. But and it's so anyway. But let's see what the.
Now, before we dive into Alyssa's presumed death from the trailer, let's talk about the gun she draws from her purse after the phone call. Now, it's quite similar to the pistol that Leon and Ada Wong use in Resident Evil 2, which opens up some interesting possibilities. For instance, we know that Alyssa's time with the Raccoon Press brought her in contact with the Umbrella Corporation's shady dealings. We also know that Resident Evil, where she made her first appearance, is set between the events of RE2 and RE3, titles that featured Leon, Ada, and Jill Valentine. Could the phone call she received be from one of these characters, whom she may have met during the course of her investigations? Well, once again, we're going to have to wait to find out if bringing some of the iconic cast from the past, or if that pistol is really just a clever reference. Number 8. The Stalker. With several recent Resident Evil titles featuring a stalker enemy in some shape and form, the one in this game could be as horrifying as it is for a reason. Now, we've already put Alyssa at the very top of characters that we would like to see making a return, speculating that having her alive would lend weight and emotional heft to Grace's harrowing journey and give meaningful development for her character. The Stalker's blonde hair and its apparent obsession with Grace might very well mean that Alyssa's fate at the end of the story trailer was that she was transformed into the Stalker after the attack at the Wrenwood Hotel. It makes a lot of sense, and could be the catalyst for Grace finding the courage to face down her fears, spurred on by the hope of finding a cure for her mother's condition, and perhaps running into Leon along the way. Making the Stalker such an important part of the narrative could be an excellent way for Requiem to raise the stakes, and perhaps even help Grace become more than the fearful person she seems in the gameplay showcase. Number 9. Grace's potential character arc. Grace's personality could be a huge part of the story and gameplay in Requiem, with all evidence pointing towards a journey from the nerdy little girl she was in the story showcase to the terrified FBI investigator she is in the demo, to an eventual badass who takes the challenges in her way head on to attempt saving Alyssa if she is indeed the stalker. On the gameplay front, playing in third person sees her stumble and fall in fear as she flees the stalker's imposing presence. Her fear and apprehension an almost palpable part of the experience. That could all change as she finds her footing, seeing her become increasingly confident, if still a little bit terrified about the threats she faces. It could be the perfect way to tie the narrative and gameplay together, making her the glue that brings the entire experience into one cohesive whole. Number 10. Leon's continued absence. Leon's.
I just want to speak on this. As much as Leon is a great loved character in Resident Evil. He came in Resident Evil 2 in 1998. He's pretty much been a prominent character in the series, going since then, and but I think as great as these like the old characters are, like Jill, Barry, Chris, Wesker, and all that, Leon, Ada, and what have you. You got to bring some new characters if you want to keep this game. If you want to keep these games fresh, do you know what I mean? Because how many times can you keep using the same old characters? It's the same old story, and it's just, you know what I mean. It just gets, it's just going to get a bit too repetitive. But in terms of because we all know Leon's story, we know Chris's story, Jill's story, Barry, Wesker, and so on, right? Well, we're all like hardcore Resident Evil fans. We're all familiar, and we all know their story, and so to keep the the series, moving forward and keeping it fresh and refreshing, is to introduce new characters. So yeah, so I think it's a good thing that they're not using like an old character like Leon as a main protagonist, because because it just wouldn't have that like your character like feeling vulnerable and scared and bringing out this that contributes to the horror aspect, because all that like feeling nervous, anxious, and there's that high level of anxiety that the character actually itself portrays on that contributes to the aesthetic of that horror kind of feel vibe to the game. So I think it's a good thing, because with Leon it wouldn't really portray that. You know what I mean? Because he's just like, he can handle any situation. Like you saw him in RE6, Resident Evil 4. Leon can pretty much, he can handle himself very well, and it just, and it'd be to like action rather than the survival horror in which the developers on this game were going for. So it just wouldn't really fit the aesthetic of what the developers were trying to bring to this game. So,
Prominent absence from any of the new promotional material only makes us more confident that he stands tall among the aces that the game is holding up its sleeve, ready to spring a very welcome surprise on Requiem's players at some point during its story. The time frame of the narrative, coupled with Alyssa's flashback and
I just want I'm just really intrigued by how Raccoon City, and they're coming back to the RPD. If we do actually come back to the RPD, or is it just going to be like a cutscene of like a flashback? Because that's the thing. Because there's nothing being confirmed about Raccoons actually going back to Raccoon City. I know they showed it in the trailer and all that, but will Raccoon City be a playable section in the game, or is it just going to be like a flashback during the cutscene? Do you know what I mean? I'm hoping it's a playable section. I really do, but you just never know, dear. Do you know what I mean? So hopefully we can find out, have more information on that as time goes by, because it only comes out in 6 months. It's only about six months more, in August, September, October, November, December, January, February. So it's only 6 months away. It's only half a year away. It's only half a year. So 6 months, it's not really a long time, is it really? But we'll see. We'll just have to wait and see. But,
perhaps even the pistol we mentioned earlier are either clever foreshadowing on the studio's part or an absolutely brilliant attempt at misdirection. For our part at least, we're favoring the former over the latter. Bonus, a playable demo. If past games are any indication, it's very likely that the gameplay demo that was available for testing at Gamescom 2025 could be made available to players at some point after PAX and the Tokyo Game Show. While we would hope that it's substantially more than 20 minutes and includes a little more of the game, getting to experience the Stalker's pursuit for ourselves—
So the demo is only about 20 minutes long. Is that what you just said? I'm pretty sure that's what you just said.
More than 20 minutes and includes a little at Gamescom 2025 could be made available to players at some point after PAX and the Tokyo Game Show. While we would hope that it's substantially more than 20 minutes and includes a little more of the game—
Oh, I see. We hope it's more than 20 minutes long. Okay.
Getting to experience the Stalker's pursuit for ourselves is certainly something that we want to do. And yeah, that wraps up everything new that we've been able to learn and glean, or at least guess, about Resident Evil Requiem so far. It's going to be a long wait until February 2026, but—
No, it's only 6 months. 6 months is not a long time. It's what?
Let's hope that the game continues to bring us new information.
Well, what's 6 months? 180 days?
To sink our teeth, pun intended, into. So, what are—
Anyway, I'm going to leave that there. But Yeah, I think it's really going for that, these the survival horror, and just bring back that horror aspect and bring it back to what made Resident Evil great in the first place. Um, yeah, I don't know when the demo will be released for to the public, on all platforms. I'd love to know, but I'm sure we'll find out in due course. But yeah, I'm looking forward to this. Getting this game and just diving into it. Especially, I'm looking forward to the demo as well. But yeah, what's your thoughts about Resident Evil 9 Requiem? Do you think it's going to be a great? Do you think it's amazing, or do you think it's going to suck? Whatever you think, let me know in the comments down below. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.